Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I like what we learned in the last session where we raised our hands. So moving on, we're going to get started with the next presenter. So we have from Management Concepts, we have Natalia Pestalozzi, who will be presenting coaching supervision.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is great. You guys are all still here at 3 o'clock. We are bringing it home right now. So thank you. I really think that's a testament to what a great conference this has been, and also a testament to the dedication you have to your craft. So I just want to give you guys a round of applause, and to the team here. So my name is Natalia Pestalozzi. I lead the coaching and mentoring practice at Management Concepts. And I have been coaching since 2009. I started at the Coaches Training Institute, getting my certification there, and have coached across the federal government in a variety of agencies and organizations. And kind of a perennial concern that comes up is, how do we continue as coaches to advance and grow? What's the next step? What's that next level for us? And you know, we can log our hours as we advance from ACC to PCC and MCC. We can grow our coaching competencies, but there's another level of capacity that we need to grow. And so I'm here today to talk to you about coaching supervision. So, a definition I would like to offer you. This is from the International Coach Federation. Coaching supervision, collaborative learning practice to continually build the capacity of the coach through reflective dialogue and to benefit his or her clients and the overall system. So I just want to ground us in this, and I'm really glad that yesterday there was an initial kind of question about this, so you guys are all kind of already primed to be thinking about this. And for those of you who have already kind of begun your research, I hope that I can add to that. And for those of you who this is new, hopefully we can kind of open up some opportunities and answer some questions and pique your interest. Something I want to call out here is that this is about building the capacity of the coach, and that the end stakeholder here is really the client of the coach and the stakeholder, or the client of the coach and the stakeholders of the client. And so this is a little bit different than what we see when we're talking about coaching, or when we're talking about mentor coaching. And so we're gonna walk through this. So in the federal internal coach world, there are lots of opportunities that I think you have, and we see these. So first, thinking about low to no cost. To be able to coach in the federal world, what we see, and I would be interested if this kind of jives with your experience, is that you get to coach across the government, and the barrier to entry is less than in the private sector, right? You can kind of raise your hand and take advantage of all of the training that you've gone through and that you're able to offer. Knowledge of the government. So there's something I think that we appreciate when we know that our coach has that experience. They know kind of where we're coming from. We don't have to explain ourselves because they kind of get us at some level. And that can really help build the rapport. Adding something that you love to your current work. You know, at the heart of coaching, right, is that fulfillment and engagement. And so adding coaching to the work that you're already doing is another way for you, another opportunity that I hope that you're finding you're able to step into on top of maybe your current role. And then finally, a community of practice. You guys are all here today, right? This is a way for you to come together and share knowledge, share the kind of challenges you might be facing, and hopefully you guys agree. Is this consistent with what you guys see as your opportunities that you have? Great. So, of course, I want to talk about some of the challenges that you might be facing also. Taking off your expert hat. Is that consistent? So when we say taking off your expert hat, this is you know, you've been in these roles of leadership. You've been in roles of supervising. And as you are thinking about working with your clients as a coach, that can be a little bit difficult because you might have that impulse to jump in because you know you've been there, you've walked in their shoes. Remaining objective. This is also kind of close in kind to taking off your expert hat, but you might know a little bit more than you need to know about the environment. Maybe you're familiar with the term kind of colluding with your clients. You might make some of the same assumptions that they're making, and potentially you might not question or challenge as much as you might if you were on the outside. Loose contracting. When I say loose contracting, I think there can be a variety of examples here. A couple that come to mind, one that came up yesterday was around ethics and confidentiality. What's in your written agreements? What's in your verbal agreements with your clients? Another one that comes to mind is if you are coaching someone who isn't paying for coaching, right? They've volunteered and you're volunteering and you're kind of accruing your hours, and that's important. Maybe your client doesn't show. Maybe they say, you know, I'm sorry I couldn't make it, or you know, I'm sorry I was, 15, 20 minutes late. How long do you let that happen? Does it happen once? Does it happen twice? Do you not press the issue because, there's no money on the line and you need your hours and they want the work and, they want to do the work? So how do you have that conversation in a way that helps both parties be accountable and stick to your written and verbal contracts? Collateral duties. So the benefit of being able to coach while you're an internal federal employee on top of your regular duties can also be difficult. You have so many other things on your plate that this is an additional area of energy that you have to kind of give and continue to give of yourself. Saying no to coaching within your chain of command. Does that happen to anyone here? So yeah, I'm seeing a couple of hands being raised. So you're this asset in your organization now, and they want to tap into this new skill that you're bringing to the organization, to your office. It can be difficult, challenging to say, you know what, I actually don't think that is appropriate. I know that you have invested in me, but this isn't the right relationship. I'm a little too close. I know a little bit too much. I can't be in this relationship in an unbiased and clean way if I'm coaching in my chain of command, whether up or down. And then fear-based questioning. We hear a lot about the notion of unconscious bias, and something that comes to mind is maybe you have some thoughts about what certain agencies are like, what the federal employees might be like, and maybe you don't ask certain questions because you're not sure that somebody would be receptive to them. So I'd love to take a couple of minutes, and if you would turn to your partner, we're just going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes and just share with one another, when have you experienced a challenge, and what was that particular challenge that you found as you were trying to coach someone as a federal coach internal to your organization? Okay, you ready to come back? Great, thank you. I'd love, would 3 or 4 volunteers be willing to share, to come up to the mic and just share a challenge that you've experienced being an internal coach related to any of these topics, or maybe something different, but something that you've shared maybe with your partner, or maybe something you didn't share with your partner. Got one taker coming up, maybe? Please.
Yeah, hi, Buthana Goram from HUD. My challenge is loose contracting. What I was talking to, my partner is that my initial contract, I set a number of coaching sessions, and then the client wanted to continue, and I just didn't do another contract. It's because it's free. We coach. It's part of our job. We kind of fit it into with what we do. So in the real world, though, outside, I know that you can't coach unless you have a contract. It's for the protection of the client and the coach, etc. So I'm not sure if it's really big issue. I didn't see it as that, so I'd like your feedback. Thank you.
Sure. So I think that's a great point. So you started with a contract, but then the relationship evolves, and you kind of let the contract lapse, and maybe that's okay, maybe that's not, but you don't have anything necessarily to reference back to. So that could potentially be a kind of a point where you don't have clarity in really what the terms of the relationship are. Great, thank you. Others, what's another challenge that you face that isn't really related to your core competencies, but might be related to something going on in the relationship? Power dynamics, potentially. Something where maybe you just felt uncomfortable?
Getting up a lot here. Oh, part of what I see that can be an internal dialogue that you have to deal with is when you don't want to give advice.
Yeah, right.
We want to help as a coach or just as a person in general. So even if you realize you're not supposed to give advice as a coach, in your head, or in my head, sometimes I'm having to say, don't give advice, don't give advice.
Right.
You're listening. They're still talking. In my head, I'm saying, don't give advice. Stop thinking about don't give advice. Listen.
Exactly.
So that can be a challenge when you want to be, you're trying to be in the situation, in the conversation.
Right.
But in your head, I'm looking at that brain. In your head, it can be, so you got to be able to sit on that or to get back off of that, and then try to be into the conversation.
Thank you. Yes. Right. So you have to kind of be able to be aware of that, and then think about, what does that mean for your presence? What does that mean for how you're showing up? Exactly. Thank you. Yes?
Yes, Carrie Register Haley. I was going to say, when internal coaching, you coach two people who are in conflict, if you coach both of them, right?
Wow.
So you'll hear the issue from this person, and then you coach the other one, and you hear a different perspective on the issue, and not sharing the perspectives that you heard, but being able to ask those good questions around the issue. Sometimes it can create a challenge.
Right. Great. Thank you. And that is a wonderful example and lead into what I'm going to call kind of the case for supervision, because I think you're bringing up some questions around confidentiality, how you're showing up and being able to maintain that. Some questions around ethics. Can and should you be even doing that? And what does that mean for how you're able to serve your clients if you are in that position? So these are some of the kind of thoughts that I have on why coaching supervision makes sense. And we're going to get into some of the distinctions and hopefully get you some clarity. But since we've talked about some challenges, I wanted to share what I think the value might be, whether you're an internal coach in an internal coach cadre, or maybe whether you're leading that coach cadre. So first is just, this is your continual growth, growing your capacity. And when I say capacity, I kind of naturally do this, right? So I'm thinking like broad and deep, like a sphere, right? So this is kind of growing into your ability to be present with your clients in a variety of ways and stay clean and clear with what you can handle and what you're bringing to the conversation in an objective way. Becoming aware of and avoiding conflicts of interest and other ethical dilemmas. So a supervisor is a great person to go to explore when you think you might be stepping into a sticky situation. And honestly, sometimes you don't even know that you're in it until you start exploring why it's uncomfortable, why this doesn't feel right, why you're somehow behaving differently with this client than you might be with all the rest of your clients. Seeing some head nods. Quality assurance of the internal cadre. So quality assurance, knowing that your coaches are continuing to explore what is actually going on for them, what their conflicts are, continuing to grow beyond their coaching competencies. Quality and consistency, knowing that your internal cadre that you're leading does have the consistency in their delivery, in the way they're showing up for their clients. And then, of course, for yourself as well, just knowing that you personally are delivering quality coaching that's not interfered with by maybe some of what you can just call your own baggage. And we'll explore that a little bit more. Staying aware of and being intentional about the dynamics that are happening. So in coaching supervision, you're really going to be exploring what is happening between you as the coach and your client. What are you sensing that's different, that maybe you weren't anticipating? Gaining credibility and competitive differentiation. So I gave you a definition of supervision from the International Coach Federation, but as I think might have been mentioned yesterday, so the ICF doesn't require supervision to be a credentialed coach. However, there are several other organizations that do. And there are some studies that have come out, and actually, as it happens, the US, North America, is about 10 to 12 years behind Europe in terms of the use of supervision. So while this is maybe new to North America and us as coaches, this is something that is actually regularly used and expected. So for a lot of international and multinational companies, their coaches that they hire who are external must be in a supervisory relationship. So for those of you who are thinking that you may have an encore career as a coach after you leave federal service, this could be a great differentiator for you as you're thinking about, why you and not another coach as you go on your interviews and coaching demos, both within the federal government as well as maybe with corporate organizations. And then the ICF does grant continuing education units. So if you're a supervisor or if you're a supervisee, you can count up to 10 hours of supervision as part of your ongoing learning development. So some of the organizing bodies that have decided to require coaching supervision in their credentialing process are the Association for Professional Executive Coaching and Supervision, the Association for Coaching, and the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. So I encourage you to do some research and look at some of the definitions of coaching supervision that are out there. What are these organizations actually requiring? What do they say coaching supervision is and its benefits? The ICF has decided not to make it required, but there are a lot of other organizations that feel that this is a critical part of your development as a coach. So let's talk about what coaching supervision is and isn't, starting with this word supervisor. So supervision, supervisor, we actually have a lot kind of wrapped up with what we think that means, especially in the employee-employer relationship. So traditionally, right, supervisors are there, right? A key part of the role is to make some judgments, give some ratings, judge performance, and that's kind of part of the deal. Your employer takes that into consideration. They're there to let you know, are you meeting the mark? And they are an authority, so they are going to be a higher pay grade. So there's a hierarchical relationship, a power dynamic that's in play, right? The well-being of the employee is not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when a supervisor is working with an employee. We want it to be totally part of that package, right? I mean, that's what we hope a great manager, a great supervisor is concerned with. But for, I think, probably most of us, we know plenty of supervisors whose initial interest is not really in the well-being of the individual if they're meeting the mark in terms of their tasks and their performance. Focus on performance and tasks, and then also the supervisor is driving the agenda in this kind of employee-employer relationship. Does that sound about right? Okay, all right. So then coaching supervision, and kind of let's make some distinctions here. So in coaching supervision, this is about non-judgmental reflection. So the supervisor is not there to critique how well you're coaching, but really to support your reflection of your coaching and how you're showing up as a coach. The supervisor and the supervisee are peers. I think we heard a little bit about some coaches who are trained and feel that they are peers and co-creating, right, with your clients. And so this is very similar. So in a supervisor-supervisee relationship, the supervisor and the supervisee are coming to this in a spirit of equality and collaboration. And the well-being of the supervisee is primary. This is all about the growth and the capacity building of the coach. The focus is on clients and client stakeholders and the coach's practice. So the end goal here is really to support the coach as they reach the swath of their clients, not for one particular client, but really how can they show up consistently across all of their clients. And then, of course, the supervisee, much like in coaching, drives the agenda. So the supervisee is going to come with a case, is going to come with a point to kind of start the exploration and open up for a little bit of discovery. Questions about that? Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay, good. Here's another way that I'd like to just give you a second to look at this while I take a little bit of water. So, coaching, mentor coaching, and supervision are actually not completely distinct. There's a little bit of overlap, and so I don't want to kind of mislead us into thinking that we're trying to make these totally separate. They're not. They can be really similar, and I think part of some of the quandary about this is in what way are they dissimilar, in what way are they similar? So, the standout thing here is that in coaching, right, you're really driving toward the coach's or the coachee's goals, right? It's a goal orientation, a goal achievement orientation, and tracking actions toward that. That can be a key element of coaching. In mentor coaching, the point here is really to think about growing your competencies and improving your core competencies as you advance through your skill development. In coaching supervision, this is where you're really thinking about capacity building. And so in all of those, you're using some of these key skills that you learn in core coaching training, right? You're doing that great listening, you're asking powerful questions. Those things don't change, but kind of the drivers and the purpose are a little bit different. So what does supervision explore? I have some questions up here that I hope start to exemplify some of the concerns and the dynamics that might be different than what you would explore in coaching. So first, right, how is the coach showing up during the coaching work, right? What are you bringing to that energy? What are your biases? What are your sentiments. Does anybody have a client that you just love to meet? You're like, yes, I can't wait until Friday because, okay. And what about clients that you're just like not necessarily feeling connected with, right? Like, oh, okay, right? So this happens, right? That happens. And so what is that about? How are you showing up and what are they picking up on that they know? How do they know how you're feeling about them and about the relationship? And does that mean that you are fit for your purpose as a coach if that's how you're feeling in either direction? So that's one part of our exploration in coaching supervision. What dynamics exist in the relationship? I'm thinking about, have you ever had a client that maybe is coming with a victim mentality potentially, maybe feeling, maybe a little bit like a victim, and does that trigger in you anything around maybe being a rescuer? Have you ever wanted your client's goals for them maybe more than they want them? Right? Yeah. What is the coach carrying that actually belongs to the client? Earlier I was talking with a coach, and we were having this conversation around kind of wrapping everything up in a nice tidy bow and the desire to do that. And sometimes that desire to kind of wrap that conversation up is because we carry some of that. We might not be able to let that go, and if the client doesn't feel kind of resolved, if that's not nice and tidy at the end, are we carrying something that is unfinished? Is that a way that we're not able to stay clean and objective? How is a coach's perspective interfering with the coaching work? So who's coaching somebody that's actually quite different from them? Yeah, right? Maybe you come upon a client and you understand that their values system is maybe different than yours, right? What does that mean in how you're able to show up, how you're able to respond, what questions you ask? And then, are you leading or directing the conversation? Are you potentially projecting something onto your client that is not theirs, that's yours, right? I'm seeing some nods here. So these are all things that I think are super important for us to be exploring. And I don't know, but where are you guys going to have these conversations? Are these with your peers? Are these with your boss? Are they with the program manager who's leading your internal cadre? Do you have a safe place where you feel you have an equal to explore these dynamics and then get clean and then think about the application to the rest of your practice so that you can be present and ready to be fit for purpose as you move forward? So the process of supervision, this is one sample of how a conversation might go. So as a supervisee, you might bring to your supervisor a case, right? So I'm noticing that for some reason, I am talking so much with this one client, and I don't do that with the rest of my clients, but something's going on here. I'm jumping in, I'm interrupting, I'm not doing the things that I know to do. Or maybe something a little bit more serious around a conflict of interest that you're facing. Something around, I realize partway through this engagement that I'm actually coaching someone whose boss I'm actually quite good friends with. And I can't seem to stay objective in this relationship. So that would be a case. So you start with that, open that up for exploration. And then you explore these emotional kind of psychodynamic elements that are there. You're using various frameworks. And then this is a little bit different than in coaching, not completely, depends on where you got your training as a coach, but the supervisor is using themselves as instrument. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. But this is where the supervisor is really able to tap into their own skill, their own awareness of what's happening in the moment with the supervisee to be able to be of best service to the supervisee and ultimately the clients. And then finally, this is about coming together, and so what? So what, as a supervisee, are you going to do as you go back and think about how you're showing up with your clients? Is that good? Does that make sense? Okay. So something that I wanted to do, instead of being up here in front of you for an hour talking at you, I wanted to bring together someone who I have come to really appreciate and who has worked with me as my supervisee. And I wanted to have a conversation with her in front of you to give you a sample of what that experience has been like, what it might look like, just to give you another perspective of someone who isn't quite as far removed from the government as I might be. So I would love, because we're kind of doing this afternoon, late, kind of low energy moment, as we welcome our colleague, I would love for you to stand up, get your little energy moment, and welcome Sandra Schmidt. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, I have one-on-one. I think I'm prepared.
So we're going to have a little conversation together, and hopefully this feels intimate and familiar, and we're going to just begin. So Sandra, would you just give us an introduction into who you are, what your background is, and where you are as a coach?
Yes, so I've got close to 40 years in federal service. And I've been a coach for about 5 years, and so that's been a little bit of my challenge, is the 40 versus 5. Just a little bit about and I'm ACC credentialed, and I have a master's degree in leadership, and I'm PMI certified. And so that's what, for me, I bring to the table, but I would say it also can get in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Can get in the way. So, so then, when I reached out to you, what made you say yes to coaching supervision? What might have been missing that you thought maybe supervision would be a useful thing to explore?
So one of my strengths, I'm a learner. So I was attracted to something new. You know, there's something new there, and I also want to continue to be of service to my client. So I wanted to grow, and this looked like, at least on paper, an opportunity to do that. And then you and I had a conversation.
Yes, yes. And anything about that conversation that stood out to you?
So that conversation gave me a clearer understanding of coaching supervision, because of course I come from a world where, you know, supervisor is like, okay, crack the whip, you got to get it together. And so in talking to you, I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. The other thing that came up for me is, wow, I've got to take off the mask. I've got to be vulnerable. I've got to be willing to be vulnerable in order to get better. And so that was a little scary. And the other thing that came up for me was when you said, okay, so how do you feel about using Zoom to do this?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, another level for me, because a lot of my coaching is on the phone. And so for us to be able to have that exchange, and for her to actually see my, you know, reactions and emotions, that was another level of vulnerability. I don't know if I shared that with you before, but
yeah. Thank you. So how do you think supervision has complemented the other professional development that you've done as a coach?
Yeah, so because I'm a learner, I've done a lot of development. I've been coached as an emerging leader. I have a mentor coach where we worked on competencies, and so this has allowed me to look at, and I'm going to use a word that's probably not proper, but my stuff that would come up in coaching, and I think this lady in the orange shared, you know, what comes up or gets in the way. And so this was an opportunity to look at that, to reflect with a partner, and then to take that back to my, you know, as I coach my client and show up differently to provide a better service and to be, and I'm using your term, and thank you for that, because when you came up, I thought, well, I don't even have to come up now. Anyway.
Yeah, great, thank you. So one of the things that we thought might be helpful, instead of doing a full supervision demonstration, was actually just to try to pinpoint a couple of conversation perspectives that we take in supervision that are a little bit different than in coaching. And so this is coming from from Peter Hawkins, from his 7-eyed model. And this is out of really the therapeutic history. And this 7-eyed model, and so 7-eyed, means kind of 7 perspectives that we take. And this is just one framework in supervision. It's not the end all, but I think an important one that demonstrates a new and different way of working together. So one of these is really asking the supervisee about what are their emotions and experiences that come up for them in the moment when they are with their client. What is happening for them in that relationship? And so, Sandra, would you just share with me some of the insights that you've had when you think about what you recognize in yourself when you're working with some of your clients?
So there were a couple things. I think one of the things we first explored was, as I focused a little bit on the client and what was happening with me, was a particular client, and I'll use your word victim, sort of was operating in that space, and that's different from me. I tend to be a problem solver, and so what was coming up for me was a level of frustration with the client because of repeatedly in sessions that victim mentality seemed to surface. And so I found myself a sense of frustration that I tried to contain.
Right.
Because as coaches, that's what we do. Even if we're feeling something or sensing something, we contain it, but we can make an observation, but there's also, for me, a certain containment of that level of frustration.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about that and how I might be triggered, and recognizing that that's not my style. And the other challenge that I was having was giving feedback to that client on that observation. So I let it, it went on for several sessions.
Okay, so you were noticing in yourself kind of this building of this dynamic that was not necessarily serving the client, right?
Yes, and we were able to talk about it, and then I think in my next session, there was a boldness that emerged with me, and I was able to have the conversation, and it actually started to shift. Her language started to shift.
Right, and I'll just, when you said that, you said boldness, right? Yeah. This right, and so that's like capacity, right? Like I'm stepping into this additional way of being.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So another one of the perspectives that we take, which I think is quite a bit different in supervision than in coaching, is actually bringing into the present moment what's happening between us right here, right now, right? So actually for the supervisor and the supervisee to use our dynamic as a potential place to look as a case, as a mini case in the moment for a dynamic that might be represented as a parallel process in the supervisee's work with their clients. So can you share a couple of, one of the questions that I might ask is what's happening between us also happening between you and your client, right? So, and I might ask, what are you noticing about us right now, right? Just bringing it into the moment. What might we learn together?
And I can honestly say when she first asked the question, I was like, what kind of question is this? So, because I was used to the coaching relationship and the mentoring relationship, so it was a little different. And so initially, I think what I was noticing is that for me, because it was new, there was a uncertainty and some nervousness on my part. I didn't notice that with you, but that's what was coming up for me initially. And then as the coaching conversations, as we went on with different sessions, I felt that there was a sense of trust and a sense of safety where I could share and kind of unmask with you and not be judged.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and so one of the things that I remember coming up was, just in the moment, noticing that, gosh, I don't have the perfect question, that would seem like a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, and so this additional perspective that we want to bring into our awareness here is that because this is a peer relationship, right? Because we are building trust and we're collaborating, as the supervisor, I also actually get to bring into the relationship what I'm sensing. Not that I'm hungry, right? but what I am experiencing that might benefit Sandra, right? That might benefit my supervisee. And it might be, maybe I'm noticing that in the moment, I'm feeling a little confused. Do you experience that with your client, right?
Yeah. And that was helpful with me, for me, because oftentimes, and again, this is coming from wearing a different hat of having to know and having to have the right answer, so that in the moment is not something that historically in my career that I had to be. Is a in the moment person and trusting that. Yeah. So hearing you say that really helped me.
Right, and I think one of the important parts here is that we do this in service of the client, right? So the question then is really, is this, what about this that we're kind of experiencing now is relevant in your relationships with your clients, right?
And that's a great point, because for myself, the notion of having, and I'm going to air quotes, the right question in the moment is always a challenge for me. And it's sort of, it has the ability to take away from my presence with the client if I'm thinking, okay, what do I say now?
Right. And something that we talked about was around trust. How are we developing, or what are we developing between us? And I think one of your responses was around, you're noticing that there's some safety, some security. Yes. And so when I ask you about, how might that be present in your client relationships, it can open up an additional way to kind of view what you're bringing in your capacity.
Yeah. And it also, it gave me a different perspective that, wow, this is what I am bringing to my client. This level of safety and trust space for them, and how that may feel for them.
Right, great, thank you. Yep. So, what would you say, how has supervision supported your growth?
So I would say, kind of to sum it up, confidence. My confidence level has increased, as I journey through this coaching space. And I'm able to be of service to my client. And so I'm showing up differently in a way that they may not understand, but that I understand how I am becoming different. And shedding some of the stuff that may be getting in the way of me being an effective coach.
Yeah. Earlier we were talking a little bit about quality. How would you say your coaching has maybe changed in terms of quality that you might be offering or value?
Yeah. So I think that the quality has increased for the client. And I'm, of course, getting some feedback wow, this really has helped me to shift in my thinking and my perspective and how I may respond to things.
Right, right. And I think that that's, really what we're after is increasing quality and consistency, being able to do that regularly and being, again, this phrase kind of fit for purpose.
Yes.
Yeah. How would you say supervision is different than coaching or mentor coaching? Any distinctions that come to mind for you?
Yeah, and I think going back to your slide where you showed the circles, and there are some intersections there. And for me, coaching, oftentimes my coaching was around my professional development.
When you were being coached?
Yes, when I was being coached. The mentor coach is looking at my competencies, because oftentimes we were looking at, listening to tapes and looking at specific competencies, where here, it's my sense that it's a deeper level, that I'm looking at how what's getting in the way, having that conversation, taking off the mask and saying, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm not as confident as I need to be, and having a space to talk about that has definitely is different from the other two modes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, kind of finally, as we think about wrapping up here, what would you say to somebody considering supervision or about its relevance to internal coaches?
Yeah, I would say if there are things, and I think I saw around the room head nods at things that may be barriers and that are getting in the way, that having having a coach, supervisor, allows for you to deal with those things, to talk about it, to unmask in a way that will then allow you to be better for your client, a better coach for your client.
Thank you. Could we give a big round of applause
Thank
to Sandra?
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I hope that that's been helpful. I hope that that has given you a little bit more context. And so right now, I'd love, again, as we're wrapping up here, just again turn to somebody nearby and just share, what have you learned, and how might supervision support you as you grow as a coach? What comes to mind for you? Just take a couple of minutes. What? Okay, I know that was quick. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank your partners. So as you hold in your mind kind of how coaching supervision might be useful for you, I just wanted to lastly share what does this look like practically speaking. So there's kind of two main ways of the coaching supervision happens. These are not kind of strict here, but we can do kind of individual supervision as well as group supervision. So individual supervision, you're coming together with your supervisor, kind of bringing your case, and the coach and the supervisor together are determining the frequency that you're working with. Typically, right, 45 to 60 minutes or so. Although I have to say that supervision can be effective even in smaller increments, even in 30-minute sessions. You can still get a lot of value together. The European Mentoring and Coaching Council recommends that for every 1 hour of coaching that you deliver, that for every 35 hours of coaching that you deliver, you receive at least 1 hour of supervision. So right now, that's a rough benchmark for how frequently you might consider your need for coaching supervision. And then coaching supervision is appropriate for all levels. This is something as you're continuing to grow that you want to take advantage of. So not just for ACCs, not just for PCCs, not just for MCCs. Everyone is continuing to grow in your capacity as a coach. In group supervision, typically small groups are better, right? You want to be able to have more intimate conversations, and when you're meeting, you want everybody to have enough time, or at least half the group to have enough time to really share, a case. Probably about 1.5 to 2 hours together, and it is led by a supervisor. And in some groups that may have a little bit more experience with kind of supervision as a model, you might have kind of opportunities where as a group you might be invited to support the supervisee. Similar experience levels are typically helpful so that everyone can kind of be in the same kind of growth path. It can happen both kind of within your organization, or you can come together from totally different spaces. So both are possible. Once a month or bi-monthly, depending on the needs of the group. So that's also part of the formation and kind of the thinking that needs to go around how these group supervisions are developed. And in both instances, right, confidentiality is key. And I would say, in this instance, remote or video-based is really kind of the mainstay of supervision. If you have the opportunity to supervise in person, that's wonderful, but as Sandra mentioned, Zoom or other kind of video-enabled opportunities work really, really well. There's a lot of international supervision happening, so that's a great opportunity. And again, just reiterating that this is about a peer relationship of equality and support. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I would love to talk about this with you, love to support you in your growth, in your journey. And I really, truly appreciate your attention here and wish you all the best as you continue in your coaching journey. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to thank Natalia for her time. So let's give her one more round of applause. We have a certificate for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And so, I don't know if anyone heard me, but I'll go ahead and introduce Robert Foy up next.
How's everybody doing? We good? This is our last session. We got Patrick Chapman coming up for mindful mediation. Mindful? Meditation. Reflections and mindful meditation.
Thank you, Rob. No problem. Well, that's a good segue. So hopefully you won't need mediation if you have mindfulness meditation. Yeah. What I'd like to do is pause for a second before we go further in. You have some wonderful presentations today. and ask everybody just to close your eyes for a minute. And I invite you to breathe through your mouth with an open mouth, eyes closed, preferably to let go of distractions around, relaxing your jaw. Just letting your breath flow naturally. Noticing where the breath travels as it moves in and out. Attending to different thoughts that might be flowing in and out of the mind. And coming back again to the breath. Feeling any sensation in the body, and noticing the texture of that sensation. Paying attention to any emotion that may be coming up. And count backwards in your mind from 3 to 1. And slowly open your eyes. Hello again. We are at the tail end of a wonderful 2-day conference here at HUD. And I want to thank everybody who has been behind the scenes putting this conference together. Those that are known, those might not be known. Let's give them a hand. And I want to thank you all for giving a moment of your time, your busy schedules, to be here, whether you be traveled from out of town or here locally in the district around. And I'm honored to be here with you to talk about mindfulness meditation, but it's not really going to be a whole lot of talking. It's going to be you all doing the talking and the movement, and us together collectively, coming to some moments of wisdom, understanding, and presence. I'm curious to know, how many people have a general meditation practice? A good fair of you. Excellent. How many of you are coaches? You coach within the work that you do. Wonderful. How many of you use meditation within your coaching practice? Okay, the numbers are getting a little bit smaller here. Okay, interesting. And how many of you are actually here, but you're not professional coaches? You're interested, you're curious about it, you're looking to get in there? Okay, a few. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, my view, my takeaway is that you can use mindfulness no matter if you use it in your practice now, use it in your life now or not. It's always available here for you. And I want to just briefly define what it is, but yet I think it's more important for you to discover for yourself what it is. A lot of different books have talked about meditation, and mindfulness meditation in particular is really just attending to what's right here in the moment. Like what we just did was a centering exercise around the breath, and there was a focal point on what was happening within your breathing, getting a very narrow focus and concentration to your breath. And then we concentrated a bit on what was going on in your thought process right here, right now. And there was a focus on your body and then also the motion. And I'm just curious to know, how many of you actually trailed off from what I asked you to focus on and started thinking about other things? Anybody in the room? Yeah. And that's what's interesting. And how many of you noticed when you trailed off and then came back at some point to my instruction. Yeah, and that's the awareness part. So there's two aspects going on in mindfulness meditation. There's this concentration on a single object, and then there's this like awareness that's happening when the mind begins to move away from that point of concentration and what comes from that. So it's not very difficult, and yet it can be very challenging because our minds are constantly moving. You heard that from one of the speakers earlier today. Mind's constantly in motion, thinking up things, getting ready and prepared for something, and then getting in action on something else. So there's two things I want to accomplish with you all today. And one of those specifically is about practice. You learn a lot from experiencing it. So we'll do some different practices. And the second thing is how does this apply to your coaching practice? I'm really curious to have some discussion and exploration around that with you all. And also, how does it show up in your life? Because one of the things about coaching is that's not just like a 9-to-5 type of experience, right? It's something that we're always being. And sometimes we're aware of that, and sometimes we're not. So the first thing I'd like to do with you all actually is ask you to raise up, please, out of your chairs. And I'd like you to move to another seat that's not in your row. And find a seat, a new seat. Not in your row, like go into another row. Someplace totally different. Yeah, I'm making a move. You can leave your stuff. You don't have to take it with you. You can come back to where you were. So find a street. Before you find that seat, do a little stretch. Like get the arms up here. Take a breath. Lovely. Okay. Nice. Please go ahead and be seated. And just pay attention for a moment on what you're noticing about moving and changing location. This is actually a coaching skill. I went through the Coaches Training Institute, and it talks about geography. And when we change, or stage change, some people refer to it as, when we change a location, it can also change our energy, change the way we think about something. Other things might come up for you. So just notice for a second for yourself about that. So for this first exercise, I invite you to close your eyes again. It's a meditation that's focused on the heart. Quite often our clients come to us in coaching and they're very much stuck in their head. They're thinking about being stuck, what they want to achieve, the last meeting that they had before they came to coaching, whether it be on a call or in person. They're all over the map. And it's easy for us as coaches to get caught up in that. And from that, we typically begin to focus on trying to help them analyze and problem solve. We jump to that, actually. It's a very common occurrence for coaches, whether you've just started or you've been involved with coaching for a while. So I want to invite you to explore this meditation. I want you to focus on your heart. And take your fingers, your fingertips, and gently place them on the location of your heart. Take a deep breath here, please. And exhale through the mouth. What's the temperature? Notice the temperature of your fingers as it connects with your heart. Feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. Maybe it's very subtle, or maybe it's beating faster. Just continue to note that. You might even be numb to it right now. And now, focus on the energy within your heart. And breathe into your heart. And get curious about what could be behind the energy that you're attending to right now. Like, could there be like another layer of energy? Like, what's there behind your heart? Notice how your heart feels. Is there like tension in that area? Or does it seem more fluid? Attend to any thoughts that might be coming up based on focusing within your heart. And notice anything that comes up as far as emotionally as you center your attention within your heart. And slowly begin to bring your attention back to your fingertips. And wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and gently open your eyes back to the room fully. I'd like you to find a partner right next to you and do two different things. For just a few minutes, talk about any discoveries from doing this heart meditation, and also talk about how might you apply this to your coaching practice or in your life. So I'll give you a few minutes to have some conversation. I'll remind you in a minute to switch. If you haven't switched, please go ahead and switch and give your other partner an opportunity to share. Please switch. Oh, something's wrong.
So you said it would go. I'm sorry.
No. And please bring your conversation to a close, please. Please bring your conversation to a close. I want to invite a few people up to the mic just to share any discoveries, and also as far as how to apply this. How would you apply this to your coaching? Yeah, it's good.
I'm sure everybody's sick of me because I always talk, but I saw no volunteers, so I decided to volunteer.
Give her a hand.
So what I experienced was that when you asked us to put our hand on our hearts and try to feel our heart, okay, my focus was on my heart. I could visualize. I saw my heart pumping. And I tried to reach with my fingers to try feel my heart, physically feel my heart. And I felt I could do it with my thumb. But oddly enough, the fingers that were on my skin that felt the warmth could not reach my heart. So I tried, and I tried. I still couldn't do it. Now, how would I use this in coaching? I was thinking just because I experienced the nothingness, if you will, I was just focused on my heart. Because we're all busy with either our personal life or with our jobs, and sometimes it gets to be a little bit too much, to use this exercise to experience nothingness before my coaching session. So I come with a fresh start with my coachee.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Who else? Mr. October.
Reginald Jackson, HHS. So Patrick, you and I had shared this before, earlier today. I just started working with a coach, and the focus is on meditation. And for myself and for my coaching practice, the thing that I want to focus on is the insight and the expansion that you can create from meditation is something that gives you, and I know I can use this language with us, it gives you so much more space and capacity for other things in your life. So to invite that same opportunity for my clients will give them that same opportunity. So to me, that's a win-win.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, please come to the mic so everybody can hear.
Hi, my name is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
And I was just sharing with my partner that I typically coach during the work day. My clients, as probably most of us do, and it's hectic. You're running from meeting to meeting, but as part of the sort of coaching agreement walkthrough and the expectations about how this process would work, I encourage my clients to try to carve out maybe 5 minutes before we meet or even 5 minutes after to catch your breath and settle down, and that I would do the same, and I just thought it was a good idea. But I didn't realize that there's rationale and reasoning, and it's a mindfulness. So I didn't even occur to me. It just sounded like something to try. But I think I'm going to try to incorporate that in our actual time together in an intentional way that we can maybe do together. Yeah. I don't know how that will play out yet, but it didn't even occur to me until this exercise, so thank you.
Wonderful. Something that you can offer to your client. Offer and let them decide for themselves. Candace.
So kind of in keeping with the heart theme, what I have found is useful with clients is sometimes they'll come with a conundrum with another person and they'll say, I have these, they'll come up with like 2 or 3 options, but they can't decide. What am I going to do? And I'll say to them, imagine as you do this little meditation that you're filtering each option one at a time through your heart, and then do it one at a time with each of the options that they've come up with on their own, and then ask them, which one feels the best?
Beautiful.
And they often come up with probably the most grounded solution by doing that.
Yeah, having them, beautiful, having them tune into the body, and then from that, then draw upon that wisdom. Yeah, thank you for the comments, wonderful. And I think the key here is that we have lots of different ways to access information. And quite often our clients, and even us as coaches, are very much focused here. This is a beautiful tool, but it's not the only one we possess. And so I find doing something like this before as a way to center very useful. And you can use a lot of different things. The very thing I did at the beginning when we just centered with each other. It only takes a minute. And you can also offer this to the clients as you design your alliance with them at the very onset of the coaching relationship. You can always invite them to explore that within the coaching session itself. So many different ways that you can access this. It's just one exercise. It doesn't take long. I encourage you to try it on for yourselves more and more and see what happens. The next one I like to do is more of a mindful listening exercise. How many of you feel that you mindfully listen? I saw like, well, you're about to have an exploration before you close out. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to get up again, find a new person, one that you did not debrief with just now. Yeah, a little bit more movement. And as you move around, I invite you to move around mindfully. Find somebody else real quick, and I'll explain what to do. If you need a partner, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you need a partner. Those that have their hands raised, find somebody else with their hand raised, and you are now partners. If we have an odd number, it's okay, go for it. Just join the group, please. All right, everybody has a partner, I'm assuming. Here's what I want you to do. We have a partner A and a partner B. Partner A, you are going to think of something that's challenging. It could be in your coaching practice that you're experiencing currently. It could be something in your personal life or another aspect of your work professional life. All right? And for 3 minutes, you get to blurt and share whatever you feel about that challenge. Partner B, your role is to listen mindfully, in silence. Nothing to say for you. Your focal point is just to listen for 3 minutes. All right? And then I'll explain the next part. So go ahead and begin this exercise. And I will let you know in about 2 to 3 minutes to switch. Oh, just observe another group. Get in another group. Or I can do it actually. Okay. Yeah, go for it. And please come to silence for the speaker. For the speaker, please come to silence. And now I want you to reverse roles. This time, whoever was the one who is mindfully listening is going to be the one speaking. You're going to focus on a different topic, though. Your topic is going to be focusing on an accomplishment that you recently had, either within your coaching practice, your other professional life, or your personal life. Whoever was the speaker now will become the one who is silent, listening mindfully. 2 minutes. Begin, please. And please come to a close in your conversation. For those that are speaking, please come to a close. Now, within your group, now you both get to talk. How about that? Here's what I want you to focus on. Focusing on what does it mean? What does it mean to mindfully listen? What does it mean to mindfully listen? I want you to share with each other about that. For 1 to 2 minutes, go for it. And please come to a close. Please come to a close. So I want to invite a few of you to share from your observation in that experience. Like, what does it mean to listen mindfully? And like, what was your experience in either role? Also interested to hear anything about that. So I invite a few of you to share. Yeah.
I know, right? Hi, I'm Nicole Turner from HUD. So
hold on for 1 second, please, Nicole. If I can get everybody's attention, please. Mindfully.
Mindfully listen. So in the first role, I was the person to just listen. And what I was explaining to my partner is while she was talking, in my head, I feel like I'm a fixer. So she probably had said 4 words, and I had fixed her entire problem. But I didn't know the problem, but it didn't matter because I fixed it.
Yeah.
So
you had it figured out.
I had it all figured out. So what I had to do is kind of say, hey, wait a minute, you're not really listening, and push those thoughts aside and really be there and listen to what she's saying. And because I'm a talker, I really wanted to talk to. So she's, telling me everything, and I'm like, pursing my lips to keep it all in. So, it just taught me what I need to learn how to do is really listen and not, and try to listen to what the person is saying to me and not what I can do for the person. And then on the flip side, I was excited telling her my accomplishment, and it was, and I was watching, she was engaged with me and everything, but I could tell, she was doing the same kind of act, like, oh, really? Like, she wanted to engage and make it a dialogue. And so it was a little like, oh my God, I want her to ask me a question, but she's not asking me a question. So, but I enjoyed that exercise, I will say, because it just taught me some things about myself and what I can do to improve, to help, dialogue with, I'm not a coach, but, with my peers and just anyone.
Yeah. Just want to thank you, Nicole, for sharing. How many of you have had that experience in your coaching or just in general? Somebody's talking and this desire to want to either jump in the conversation, hands are coming up more now. Yeah, or you maybe check out for a minute, all those types of things. Other thing I want to check in with you all too, we're short on time, is I want to leave you with a story of an experience I had in coaching itself and how I found myself with mindful listening. A client comes and they have an employee that is offboarding, and there's frustration. They're scattered in their thinking. There's venting going on about this particular employee. And I just invited the client to pause, just for a minute or two. And then I asked a question. And the question was something like, what's like the most challenging part about this for you? And the response was, I want that person to know I care, and I'm not sure how to have that conversation in the way that that person can hear it. And so I leave you with just the thought about it that in that moment, because I had centered myself before I came into the coaching session, and because I actually recognized, then it helped me recognize the client that's scattered in their thought, and that I was coming from a place of heart and how I was relating to the client, that client then was able to get in tune for themselves with what was most valuable and important to them. And I encourage you to reflect on that for yourselves of how can you as a coach, and even in your broader life, come from a place of heart mindfully to listen, to be present, to serve other people. I'm sorry we're a little bit shorter on time. Thank you. And thank you for your time, Robert. Yeah.
Let's give Patrick another round, please.
Yeah.
We have a certificate on behalf of our OCHCO, Tawanda Brooks, and our CLO, Dr. Sheila Wright. Patrick, thanks again, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Dr. Sheila Wright to come up and close out, please. Hold on 1 second.
Sorry, that's okay. You good. I was about to say, remember I told you guys I'm a morning person? So I was about to say good morning, but I'm sorry, good afternoon. All of that with no Starbucks? Okay. You know, there's a saying that says the race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but those who endure to the end. Give yourself a hand clap for enduring. You endured. You hung in there, and we are so proud of you. I hope, I'm going to do a gut check. You ready? I did this morning. If you've learned at least one thing that you can use right away, thumb up. 3 to 5 things that you've used, hand. More than 5 things, jazzy hands. So we have done our job, and we are so pleased that you guys came out and learned together, grew together, and we're building together, right? So I hope that you're charged to go out and from here and encourage our workforce, build our workforce, to grow our workforce, and improve our workforce. That's all that I really had. So listen, we will be doing more, we will have more opportunities, and we hope, our goal here at HUD, we realize that not every agency has funds to do this type of thing. Really, HUD doesn't have the funds to do these. I know I heard a little rumbling about, y'all got food, and how you did this, and how you did that. And you know, we all took federal appropriations law. So if anybody's feeling like they want to go to the Office of the Special Counsel or the IG, just let you know, we all, didn't we all? Took a federal appropriations law. Mark took a federal appropriations law. And so the instructor taught us well in how to justify such activities such as this one. Okay, so I just want to let you all know, if you want to know who my instructor is, you can check us out on the side over here after this session is over. But listen, it takes a lot of work to put something like this together. The team started back in November, planning and executing and reaching out. So I'd like to, I think we thank the broadcasting team. We have a phenomenal broadcasting team. We thank there were a number of individuals who came in today. There were some folks that said, I webcasted yesterday, I participated virtually, but came in today. We had over 330 individuals to register. And so that says a lot about the people that are committed to executing effective coaching strategies and principles, right? And so we're glad about that. We're going to be sending you guys some follow-up emails about the number of hours that you have. And we're also going to post some of the sessions that we have on our online career resource center. And so in case you need a refresh, in case you need to get your mind right, and all of that, why am I doing this? You can check out www.hudlearn.net, www.hudlearn.net. We're going to put it in an email. Nova's so wonderful. And so we're going to put it in an email, www.hudlearn.net. On that particular site are clips from our Exceptional Leadership Conference. You might see some familiar faces there, as well as this coaching conference. So with not to delay you any further, some of you look really bright-eyed and alert and all that. Some of you look like you're fading. So I'm going to let you go. What's up?
Please tell them to check under the chairs. We have a lot of umbrellas and things.
Oh, yeah.
There's
a cell phone missing, so could you check under your chairs? Make sure you have all of your belongings, like umbrellas. I think yesterday folks left umbrellas and bags and everything here, you know. So please make sure you have everything, okay? We're going to give you guys, so I hope you guys will be safe. And I also hope you guys will, when we send out messages about opportunities, that you will participate. Thank you for coming, and please be safe. In the field, you guys have been fantastic and phenomenal for hanging in there with us. We truly appreciate you, and you will be hearing more from us, our field employees, so thank you so much. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to kind of exit stage left, and all HUD coaches, please stay behind. HUD coaches only, please stay behind. HUD coaches.